Vitarabhavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
So as we saw in the last class, the whole spirituality is concerned with two major things. One is self-growth and one is self-inquiry. Even self-growth, as Sanders said, requires self-inquiry, right? So even if you want to become more dharmic, you need to understand what is dharma. You also need to assess where you are placed right now in terms of your following dharma, right? And you also need to assess what is your emotional maturity and how to, right? So that means it also precedes inquiry. That's a very, the only difference between self-growth and self-inquiry in technical terms is that this requires an effort. It's not already there. The emotional maturity is not already there. The understanding of dharma is not totally there. Your connecting, your understanding of your intimate connection with all the beings is not already there. So you need to develop it. So this is why we call it apraptasya prapti, right? So that means something which is not already there, you need to work on and you have to make it.
Literally it means the gain or the accomplishment of what is not yet accomplished or gained.
And praptasya prapti, the self-inquiry falls in the category of what we say, the nature of Atma, which is that which is awareness, which is limitless. Is it that you need to produce this Atma before? No. So that is what we call praptasya prapti. It is something which is already a fact, and therefore you need to know this fact. So self-growth requires effort. Self-inquiry, which is already a fact and which requires what? Removal of ignorance. Now if you think that it's only this, then there is a problem. Because Walker explained the relationship. Can you, during the break, can you explain the relationship, Walker?
Yes, so how I saw it is that if you invest in your self-growth, you can remove some ignorance, and when you remove this ignorance, you can ask further questions, which you then can use again to gain knowledge and use that for your self-growth, and then so it's this kind of circle.
It's a positive loop that Walter is talking about, right? How are these two connected? The more you work on your self-growth, the mind will become relatively quiet, with less conflict, with less affliction. And that kind of a mind, when it listens to Vedanta, is able to understand the words better, right? Without projecting its own ideas on it. And the more you understand, the more you will be able to live with certain clarity, and it will again further help your self-growth, right? So that means what happens is human mind is a complex mind. We can put this emotional maturity into so many subdivisions, how you view the world, what is the nature of your emotions, are you in denial or are you completely caught in it, or what is your self-image. All these constitutes of emotional maturity. So that means the more you understand, the more you'll be able to work on this, as Walker is saying. And the more you work on this, what will happen is this understanding will become closer. So he calls it a positive loop. So the way it is organized is that this not only is non-negotiable, but the more you start working on this, your capacity to understand this reality will become more and more. The more you understand that, your self-growth will be further enhanced. Yeah? So that's a positive loop that he was talking about, and I'm so glad he talked about that. Yeah? So now what we saw is, here is, okay, just two more things I want to know. This connection and responsibility, does it belong to self-growth or self-inquiry? Right? Discovering your connection and your responsibilities, it's all kind of connected to your self-growth, right? And being discerning and discriminating. Huh? Inquiry? Both. Very good. Right? Because not only you need to understand what exactly is meant by Satchidananda Atma, but suppose an emotion arises, right? You also need to have some clarity about, is it that I'm projecting something, or actually the situation really calls for this. So that means it also requires certain discerning about, right? Even to kind of sort out, suppose you have this is a very common thing. Suppose somebody is suffering from a low self-image, then the person wants to very quickly go to this place where one has a very healthy self-image, which is I'm Brahman, I'm limitless, right? But actually, what has happened is this criticizing person who's constantly looking at oneself as inadequate is not relatively taken care of. Right? So what then happens is, the big problem is that there is a huge disconnect between my emotional life and what I declare to even myself who I am. And when that disconnection happens, actually the world is so intelligent, it makes you recognize that there is a disconnect between what you actually are saying about yourself and how you're feeling. Now, with Vedanta, you have acquired few other terms to remain with that disconnect, and oh, this is all mithya. Bad. Right? It's a sad case. So that means, oh, it's all mithya is a kind of a very easy way out to not take responsibility for your life. So therefore, right, so this is where what we are saying is both are absolutely critical, and as Walter says, the more you work on your self-image, and the way you work on your self-image is not by telling yourself, I'm Satchidananda Atma, because you haven't yet understood it. What you need to do is, when you give yourself a self-critical message, you need to correct it. You need to correct it. At what level you need to correct it? At the level of empirical. Suppose I tell myself, right, that I'm not good enough, people are, so then you have to correct it and re-look at, is it really that people are mean to you, or is it that you are inadequate in this given thing, or there is more truth to it. So when you do those corrections, please don't move to the final reality. That is not required, and it is not something which will help you in any way. Yeah. So that is what we say, that this loop that Walker is talking about is critical, and you need to use it intelligently to help yourself to this final truth. Yeah? So this is exactly what the prayer is. Now the prayer is, the Vedic prayer is actually for this. Let's see. It's very nice. It says, Bhadram karne bihi shununyam devaha. So let my ears, which are given to me by the universe, let them hear something which is auspicious. So now, auspicious that you hear, so what it means is that you have this, you can't blame the senses, and you can't blame the world. World has many things to offer, and you also can't blame your ears, because your ears just do the function of hearing whatever is in front of it. So now, what it is a question of your free will, where you place your ears and what you choose to hear. Because today, you can be anywhere. You could be sitting at home listening to rock music. You can be sitting at home listening to classical music. You can be at home listening to nothing and just doing whatever, right? Or you can be here listening to something which can enhance your understanding. So that means the world is full of possibilities. Don't blame the world. And your ears also, please don't blame, right? It's not a question of detaching from the world. It is that intelligent living is get your ears where it helps you. Put your ears in a place which helps you, right? That's smart living, intelligent choices, right? So this is when we say, whether you recognize it or not, unfortunately, if everybody recognizes what is going to help them ultimately, then also all make this choice. But they don't make it because there is lack of discrimination and lack of discernment. So when we all operate from lack of discerning and lack of discriminating capacity, we ask for help. Who do we ask for help? Increase our discriminative capacity. Who? Ishvara. So that's why it's a prayer. So that means you have a certain discriminative capacity and it's your responsibility to work on it, but you also ultimately you don't know what is good for you, so you ask for help. So let my ears hear the good and let my eyes see the good. What does that mean? Does it mean some positive thinking that, oh, everything that you look at positively? What does it mean? Does it mean that? Do you think it could mean that? No. Who's saying yes, who's saying no, who's unsure? No, it can't mean that. Why not?
Because it depends whether the eyes are exposed to, let's say, Nankla or the Shruti, which means that depends on which input is entering through the senses. That's how the individual will find their antakarana, their somebody.
Exactly. So that means, let my eyes also make the choices as to, proper choices as to what do I choose to see, right? So that means also, sometimes, there are people who, no matter where you put them, there is always, oh, I can't do it, and oh, it's so tough, and oh my God, it's awful, and so heavy, So there is one person. And there is another person who's like pretending as if there is no problem. Oh, everything is wonderful and everything is really nice and oh, interesting and So now both these people are kind of living from their own vision of realities. What you want to be is kind of an objective person, and the meaning of objectivity doesn't mean that you are without emotions and you're mechanical and you're rational. The definition of objectivity is that different situations arise in your life and different situations that arise call for different response. And your ability to recognize what is an appropriate response in that given situation is what we call objectivity. So that means sometimes I read, it's an interesting, in the Times of India, there was an article. And the article was interesting. The article was that when some friend of yours comes to you and tells you that they broke up with their boyfriend, what not to say. So, what not to say included, guess what? To tell them, it's okay, doesn't matter. The second thing is, oh, you'll get a better boyfriend next time, right? Then what not to say is that, yeah, this is what happens, relationships anyway break and they come and it's okay. So these are all the things of what not to say. So in Bombay, when I told them what not to say, they all said, oh, but we said exactly the things that are not to be said. So what is to be said then?
Nothing.
Very good. actually the person is a little bit grieving. So the main job at that time is not to start lecturing the person, but listen compassionately, right? Person is in pain. And when person is in pain and you are giving some hundreds of different advices, right, from your wisdom, if that person doesn't need it now, right? And so that means what is appropriate for that situation is just compassionately, little bit listen to that person and empathize a little bit with, yeah, it's true that when somebody breaks up, relationship breaking is never that easy. So that means it accompanies a lot of pain. And you have to understand the pain that the person is coming from. It's really not the time for you to show off your wisdom. Right? So this is what we call objectivity. Objectivity means your mind is able to assess what is appropriate for the situation and do what needs to be done. Right? When it requires an emotional response and you start giving philosophy of life, it's called inappropriate. Right? So therefore, this is what, that your eyes have to see things, what is required at that given point in time accurately, and also learn to respond to it appropriately. Yeah? This is why we talk about emotional intelligence, we talk about spiritual quotient, which we saw in Berlin retreat. I will not redo it here. Okay? So that is what he says, that let my eyes also have the ability to see the situations accurately. That is it then now. And also, what else do I need? Sthirai rangaihi sushtuvagam sastanutihi. Let my body and its limbs be all healthy. Very nice. We are really wanting the help of Ishvara to make ourselves all very alert and smart and interested and, helping ourselves. So that means ears and their capacities are a blessing. You have to ask for the wisdom to use them properly. The eye is a blessing. You need to ask for the wisdom to use it, your capacity to see things, use it properly. Then you have been given lips. Don't be in denial. That is another big problem where we say, I'm not the body. Hey, don't take Vedanta like I'm not the body. Hey, you're actually asking for a healthy body. So you can ask yourself, so if I'm not the body, why should I ask for a healthy body? Answer this question. This is a prayer. If ultimately I have to learn that I'm not the body, why should I ask for a healthy body? Tell me.
Because it's like a tool, we need it here.
Excellent. So that means a body is a tool. Actually, you need the body and the mind to solve this problem of confusion, of self-identity. So that means don't everything that people are not supposed to do after listening to Vedanta, I see them do. Kind of a denial with this body, disowning the body, and talking about, oh, this jiva is this, and hey, don't talk about it. Right now you're connected to this body. Don't get into all these funny spiritual vocabularies. She's smiling. Right? Because the minute suppose you pretend that, oh, I'm not the body, then you go to a doctor and the doctor says that you have a little bit of a problem. You will be worried. Right? Then you'll have two things. One is like, I'm not the body, I'm not the body, I'm the body. And then you're worried. And what happens to your real worry, which is real? Oh, this is all mithya. Problem. This is how you become a person who's like completely disoriented. So therefore, these prayers are very, very useful. They're very practical. They say, hey, even if I ultimately have to understand that I'm not the body, I need, body is a very useful tool and my mind is a very useful tool. It has to be available to solve this problem. So you are actually asking for healthy limbs, to be able to live meaningfully. Okay? So that is what he says. Sthirai rangaihi sushtuvagam sastanubihi vyashema devahitam yadayuhu. So let all this, let us spend with this healthy body and healthy mind. What do you want to spend time with, it says. You want to spend time with, as Kurt was saying, seeing your connection with the universe. Beautiful. And what? That swastinaha indraha vriddashravaha. You want to see your connection with this universe. You want to become this person who is much more alive to realities and your interconnectedness and your deep connection to everything. And for this, what happens is swasti naha indraha vriddashravaha. You need the blessings of Indra. These are all the Vedic deities. Now, what are the deities? I don't want to spend too much time on it. I did it in Berlin. I made you see what is this, what are these deities, right? So this is all just one intelligence, and different manifestations of this intelligence. You are actually invoking their grace to bless you. So that means this particular prayer is very much connected to finding your connection with the universe. Right? So therefore, here he says, I need Indra's help. I need the help of Indra is the king of the heaven. Then I also need help of the sun. Why do you need help of the Lord Sun? Swastina Pusha Vishvavedaha. Why do you need the blessings of the sun? The sun has to shine and the sun has to what? Sun makes your life possible. But sun also represents what? Huh?
Knowledge.
Knowledge and clarity. Sun is shining. So that means, let my mind be brilliant. So therefore, you need the blessings. Sun is a representation of light. And you want the light in your being, which is at the level of body and mind. Swasti nastaksho arishtanemi. Right? So that means that there is a word. See, it includes everything. It's interesting. You need blessings from the God of the heavens. You need the blessing of the sun. You need the blessing of what? Garuda. Garuda is an eagle. And what does eagle stand for? One is, huh?
Unit flights.
Yeah, it flies. It's interesting. Huh?
Overview.
Yeah, it actually flies really. The one thing about Garuda is very interesting. It flies really high. So what it exactly?
Focus is like the eagle.
Superb. What wonderful. See these representations that are used in Vedic. They are incredible representations. It flies very high. So as Carl is saying, it sees the reality from a much larger perspective than what we are used to seeing. And at the same time, as Ruxandra is talking about, at the same time it is able to what? Focus and see sharply the smallest object, which is what? On this ground. It's able to do both. Brilliant. That is the kind of mind that you need. Right? It's able to see a very big picture, but when that very big picture you have to connect it to the smallest realities and you have to put it all in place. There is no such thing called big picture without the details. It doesn't exist. Right? So this is what? That Garuda is also invoked, the grace of Garuda is invoked to ask for a mind which is like that. It's big, at the same time go into the depth of things and you can work out the whole thing. It doesn't remain only at superficial level. Yeah. So that is what you need the grace of Garuda for. And Swastina Brihaspatir Dadatu. You need blessing of Brahmaji. What does Brahmaji represent? This intelligence's capacity to produce every new moment. every moment is coming into being. So by the time I finish one sentence, one moment, how many moments have gone? Many. Right? So, right. So that means every moment is actually an opportunity. Is an opportunity. It's an opportunity, and we need to actually make use of opportunities that are given to us in life. And your ability to see things freshly and not from huge past burdens. But that doesn't mean that you have to be in present. This being in present, which is like a very common advice that is given by spiritual circle, you need to really think about it. How will you be just in present without being connected to the past? Is it possible? No. Why is it not possible? Because I'm creating sounds and you are hearing those sounds and you are making the meanings in your mind. What did you use? Memory. The memory of language. Do you understand? The memory of language enables you to make, to make sense of what I'm saying.
But doesn't the present, often I'm remembering, isn't that also, am I not remembering right now, in the moment? Is it, can there be a not present? I mean, if I'm remembering something, you say, hi, this is already, you could say in the past, I hear it though, in this moment, it's not, in the future, it's not in the past, it's always present in that sense.
It is in the present, but it is drawing from skills that you have learned in the past. You understand that? So that means nobody can be not connected to the past.
So
right?
perceiving an actual moment, it's actually remembering from the past. Because the moment we try to perceive now, it's already happening in our thought, then we have to remember that thought in order to...
And even you need to remember, suppose you go out of the class and then a situation arises and you have a natural response to that situation. You have to remember what was said in the class and hopefully use that understanding to change the way you respond to the situation. It all requires, right? So nobody can be totally only in present because your present is very intimately connected to the past. This is Ishvara. This is why we have a trinity. We have Brahma, who is creating new moments. Then you have Shiva, which is constantly destroying. And between this constant creation and destruction, there is a seeming sustenance. So now, what we are drawing, and that you can't change. Please understand, there are three such intimately connected realities. It's not up to you to eliminate one and only to pay attention to. This is why I say, start to live with the knowledge of the truth. Because then you have to align to realities. You don't create your own realities and your own ideas and start living from there. So therefore, here it says that, hey, let Brahmaji, the new moments that are coming to me, it is enable me to make use of these new moments that are coming. Let me not be the slave to the past, and every moment is an opportunity. Doesn't mean you don't have to think about the past, or you only have to be in the present. But let me make use of the present moments wisely. Do you see the difference? Yeah? Okay.
I'm still trying to understand. So the past in this sense is, to define it, is memory. What I remember is the past.
Yeah.
What
So
200 years ago.
So just 1 minute. So for example, right now I'm speaking all these. I'm using this vocabulary. It's not at this moment I acquired all this knowledge. I acquired this knowledge sometime maybe when I was in school or when I was in college or when I was studying with Swamiji. Now I'm drawing from that right now to make use, I'm making use of it to, communicate something to you, right? So that means nobody can live only in the present because your present is so connected to the past, right? Otherwise, what will happen, understand this clearly, otherwise what will happen is, that if you literally want to live only in the present, you will be like person who has Alzheimer and who has forgotten everything.
No thinking
Because
is
you have
possible
no
without-
connection, yeah, you have no connection to the past. And he asked, I have a friend whose the father has Alzheimer, and what they told me is, one day he will die, not because he is not well, he'll forget to gulp. He'll not remember how the mouth, what you put in the mouth, the brain will not remember how to put it down, and this is how he can die one day. So that means what you need to understand is, don't make some huge thing of I only want to be in the present. It's so intimate, it's so intricate, and therefore you have to constantly draw from your past. Every skill that you have, your cognitive capacities that you're using right now, it's acquired not at this minute, you're using it but for this purpose. So that means, see that connection between the past and present, which is part of Ishvara.
Very good, the idea of living in the present. This idea of I want to live only in the present is related to the past, because I have to know how to live and how to do things. I mean,
Exactly.
rationally is not possible.
Right? So what it then means is that not just must one advise only live that, let me make proper use of the time that is given to me on this earth. The moments are given, and each one, either you can waste it away, or you can use it for your well-being, or you can misuse it. So therefore, here you're reminding and you're asking for help. Let me make use of that new moments, create opportunities for me. Let me take those opportunities and let me learn and let me grow to be able to know this truth. Yeah. So swastina bruhaspate dadatu om shanti shanti shanti. So that means you need help of not only your senses, but you also need help from all the different devatas in the universe to make your journey meaningful and successful. Yeah. So that means here we are not talking about not connecting to the universe. Here we are talking about finding a very deep connection with the universe and asking for help from so many different forces for our growth. Yeah. You had somebody had.
Yeah, but it was concerning the previous point to me. As I understand it, thinking is not possible without the past. Thinking is always the past. So when you're thinking, you're using either ignorance or knowledge. And you can only see what you know outside. Is that correct? So when you look from ignorance, you see ignorance. And when you look from knowledge, you see knowledge. Because there is no seeing possible. You can only see what you know.
Yeah.
You cannot see what you don't know.
That's true. You see what you know, but at the same time, see, what you know is so many different things, right? Now, what you draw at that given point in time, whether it matches what is there or not, is a skill, right? Because you know many different things. What you draw from in your memory, right? So you go for an exam, and you know so many things. And only the songs of Bollywood come. But what is required right now is you're writing an economics paper. So that means you draw from your memory, but right now it's not matching what is called for in this situation. So that means right extraction at the right time for right engagement. Yeah. So.
One final question.
Yes.
The meaning of the last word, the three sources. This is what kind of sources?
Which, yeah, so what we understood that Shanti, Shanti, Shanti applies to the three that we saw. The same three, right? The three Shantis always refer to Adhyatmika, Adi Bhautika and Adi Daivika. So three sources of Shanti. Exactly. So that means you can never live free from your physical environment. You can never live free from some daivika. So instead of pretending that you're alone and you don't want to connect to anybody, you actually live intelligently and ask for their help. Clever. Right? You see how the Vedic prayers themselves actually show you so many things that you figured out. Yes.
Are these three sources also to be correlated with the dharmas, the universal order, your swadharma or your dharma, and the appropriate answer for the appropriate situation? Is this also correlated?
Is correlated. Yes, the appropriate response requires, it's multidimensional. Very good. So what do we mean by appropriate response to a given situation? It is multidimensional, and one, as I showed you last time, is that somebody comes grieving and you start giving them philosophy. That is inappropriate. But that's not dharma, right? It's not a question of dharma. What Ruksandra is talking about is the other indicator of whether it is an appropriate response to a situation or not. The other indicator is dharma. And dharma itself is subdivided in two categories, what we call samanya dharma and swadharma. So what is samanya dharma? It is the universal ethical values, right? And the other one is swadharma, which is what your personal duties and responsibilities in the grand scheme of things. So that is also a factor, it's factored in appropriate response. Yes, very good. We will see all of these terminologies a little bit more in detail. Yeah. Otherwise, what will happen is in this itself, everything will come. So that I can't do, but it's very good. And we will talk about dharma during these 5 days and how to look at dharma, what is the vision of dharma, and how to align ourselves to that power, to that dharma will come. Very good. Is it okay? So now, just if you were to describe this prayer in 2 sentences, what is this? What is it doing? Can anyone attempt to explain what this prayer, what is this person asking for? Wonderful. The person is asking for help is not pretending that I am Satchidanandatma, right? He is wanting to study and he is asking for help. And whose help? Ishvara's help. And how is he relating to Ishvara?
By exposing our senses to the appropriate needs.
Great. So that means Ishvara's help in what? Making proper use of the senses. Right? Then Ishvara's help also for what? Both eyes and ears you want to use intelligently. What else you want?
Help.
Your speech you want to use intelligently. What else is this? All these different forces. What is? The intellect. The intellect about it.
You can fly high and see the little.
Okay. So you're asking for a sharp intellect. So I had a friend who was studying physics in USA in a very good university, and she was telling me that right now, since Albert Einstein and all, there are no major earth-shaking discoveries in the area of physics. Yeah, there are a lot of small discoveries, but there is nothing which is like so groundbreaking. So what she used to say is that all these physicists, they are absolutely brilliant, but they get so caught in the details that they have lost sight of what? Big picture. And there are people who only think about big picture, and they have lost sight of how to actually this big picture, how to logically use this big picture to actually bring clarity that they don't know. So there is a complete disconnect. That either people are only thinking about big picture and forgetting, or they are so caught in the small picture and they forget the big. So that's why, as Yuta is saying, you're asking for that brain which is sharp and clear. Clarity means that it holds the bigger thing, and it also holds each little step till the end, without any confusion, without any mix-up, without any weakness. So you're also asking for help for a sharp and broad intellect, both. Wonderful. You're asking for help to use the moments that you are given usefully, right? So this is all the help that you are asking. The sun to give you clarity of thinking, clarity with emotions. What is pratibhasika? What is vyavaharika? We will see on this. What is my own subjective superimposition, and what is the reality? All this your mind has to be alive to. So you are asking for that clarity. Okay? So the start of the study itself, you see how evolved the students are and how they want to use this opportunity to study with a proper attitude and proper understanding. Okay? Now, next. Atharvane yam pravadeta brahma atharvam tam puro vat angire brahma vidya saha bharadvajaya satyavahaya braha bharadvajaha angirase paravaram. Wow. So, what does this mean? This literal translation, if you read, so what it is showing, what is it showing? The student and teacher lineage, right? So the who in the beginning, what Atharva taught that Brahma Vidya to Angir. So what? Who is the person? Who is the teacher?
Brahmaji.
Yeah, the first. Yeah, here you're right. And Brahma Vidya Brahmaji had given to Atharva. So in the chronology, who is the first teacher? It has many different names. In the chronology, who is the first teacher? Brahmaji. Yeah, exactly. So Brahmaji was the first teacher, and he gave it to whom?
Atharva.
Atharva. Very good. Even this figuring out requires a little discerning power. Okay. Atharva. And Atharva gave it to whom?
Angir.
Huh? Angir. Good. Angir. And Angir gave it to whom?
Satyavaha.
Satyavaha. Okay, even I have to look. Yeah. And Satyavaha?
Bharadvaja.
Bharadvaja. And then Bharadvaja?
Angiras.
Angiras. Perfect. Okay, by the way, this is not the Frog Upanishad. Everybody was telling me, oh, I'm looking forward to this is not Mundaka Upanishad, this is Mundaka Upanishad. And by the way, Mundaka Upanishad translation is not Frog Upanishad. It is using a very sophisticated methodology of Om to make you see your nature. That is a beautiful Upanishad. Yeah. So therefore, one of the meanings of Mandukya is frog, it's true. Yeah. But the Upanishad is a very evolved Upanishad. Okay. Now this first verse is just giving you this information that this knowledge that you want all the blessings of everyone for this self-knowledge, and that knowledge was given by Brahmaji to Atharva to Angir, Angir to Satyavaha, Satyavaha to Bharadvaja, Bharadvaja to Angiras. How is this information useful for you? Why do you need to know all these names you'll never remember in your life, right? so what is it trying to tell you? It's just giving you some information which is useless. What do you think is the purpose of this information?
It shows the timelessness of the teaching.
Okay, wonderful. It shows that if anybody is saying that I'm the one who dawned on this reality, right? Then that is something that this is a whole timeless teaching that we are talking about, right? So that means that nobody is the author of this knowledge. If you claim that I am the one who discovered it and I am the one who is starting this tradition, you don't know what you are talking about. The traditional teaching is not centered on the person. It's centered on the truth. And the truth is what? Something which is flowing, right? Now, so it is a timeless teaching. It started long, long, long ago. And who is the first teacher? Who is this Brahmaji? Ishvara. Very good. Okay. It also shows that the source of not only Vedanta knowledge, but source of all different kinds of knowledge is Ishvara. What I mean by that, I have to explain. What I have to explain is, before Newton discovered the laws of gravity existed or not?
Yeah.
Yes. So that means the presence of laws of gravity did not depend upon human beings knowing it or not knowing it. Do you get it? So when we say that Newton discovered it, what did Newton do?
He extracted the obvious.
Very nice, Andre. Okay, he extracted the obvious. That sounds really nice. Okay, little simpler words.
He uncovered what was already there.
Excellent, right? The laws which already existed, which not only made the apples fall, but which also made what? The earth not have a bang with another planet. These intricate laws already existed. Millions of people before Newton saw the apples falling, nothing happened. Right? But he was the one who extracted the obvious, according to Andre, which is true, right? Something which was there, which was making, but nobody actually earlier thought about it, right? And therefore, what did Newton do was, did he create the knowledge of gravity? No. The earth and every object in this universe, before the human being knew the word gravity, already was in operation. So that means it shows not only Vedanta, no knowledge human being creates. The human being only lives the ignorance. So that means the ultimate ownership of knowledge only is to Ishvara, not only for Vedanta, for any discipline of knowledge. So that's why in India we don't have authorship of knowledge. You have Indian classical music, right? And you have all these different gharanas. But if you ask Rag Bhairavi, who's the author? They don't have names, right? So that means the different schools of music, they render this Bhairavi differently. So you have different schools. You say it is the Lucknow Gharana, or it is South Indian, Karnataki style. So that means the rendering differs. The authorship doesn't belong for the ragas, doesn't exist. Because there is a deep understanding that human being owns the knowledge. The knowledge pre-exists. The only thing that human being does is to remove ignorance. Discovers the obvious by engaging deeply. Okay? So this verse is a very important verse. It's not just giving you some meaningless names of people that you are expected to remember. It shows many, many different things. That the first is, source of all knowledge is Ishvara. And now, the first person who receives this knowledge, in this case, law of gravity, who was the first person who received it in Newton, right? And he passes it on, right? So that means Newton gets a different name and he is called what? Rishi. This is true. Swamiji was, this is how Swamiji was different from everybody else. Rishi, if you really see, the Sanskrit meaning of Rishi means the seer. The seer who saw certain realities the first. So that means, just as Newton was the first one to see the laws of gravity, here, who got it? Who was the Rishi here? Atharva. Wonderful. Right? So from Ishvara, Atharva, he is called the Rishi, he got this knowledge, right? Now Newton, for him to understand the law of gravity, what did he need? And engaging mind. So this is exactly, this Atharva had a certain self-growth and a clear mind, and he was able to see certain realities for the first time. What did he do? This Rishi, what did he do? Huh? Passed it on. Excellent. Now, one thing is very important in every passing on. Listen to this carefully. Every passing on, whether it is Newton passing on or Atharva passing on, what do you need? You see the reality. Is it sufficient and you just repeat the reality that you see? No. No. What do you need?
Understanding.
Yes, but in addition to understanding, what do you need?
The capacity to
Teaching skills. Excellent. You need the capacity to explain. You need a methodology of teaching. You understand? Otherwise, passing on is not possible. So that means when Newton discovered the laws of gravity, he not only understood certain things, in order for him to pass it on, that became what? The theory of gravity, which shows all the intricate working of the laws of gravity. All derived with each step very intricately to make you see how the apple falls. So along with this knowledge, in order for it to be passed on accurately, you need what we call is adequate methodology. Because without adequate methodology, you cannot transfer what you have understood to somebody else. Right? So that means, now, suppose you use this methodology. When you are trying to, you all have studied mathematics, whether you like it or not, you have studied mathematics. And you had to derive this theorem. In order for you to get to from one point to prove one thing, can you just say, oh yeah, intuitively I know it, so therefore it is right? Your teacher will give you 0. So where is the key? How do you logically move from this to next, from this to this, from this to this, and finally arrive here? This is what we call what? Whole methodology. In the methodology, implicit in this methodology is taking you from where you are to taking you where you have to go. And it has to be step by step, and you miss one step, and it's like Sudoku. Everybody liked my example of Sudoku, right? Because it was nice to understand that it's not, you make one little mistake and then the whole thing it doesn't fit. It's not just one little mistake. The whole thing, it has an implication on whole. Yeah. So therefore, this is not only to get here, the steps are important. And suppose you make one mistake in one step and you start imagining it to be this, what will happen to this?
Wrong answer.
Huh?
You get it wrong.
You will get a wrong answer. So therefore, what is important is following this methodology accurately. Because only then what happens? The transfer is complete. Otherwise, the Rishi thought one thing, and by the time there is a thing called Chinese whisper. You know Chinese whisper? Yeah. So I say something and I pass it on to Andre, and it goes around and it goes to Rudra, and Rudra has a completely understanding, or the message changes completely. So therefore, in order to avoid that, it has to follow a proper methodology. So what it says is, a successful transfer requires what not you start believing you're the author. Author is Ishvara, and Ishvara has a certain vision, which is a fact, and that vision, which is a fact, we call every knowledge is Vastu Tantra. These are all technical things that you must understand before you even begin to understand what Vedanta is all about. What is knowledge, jnanam? The definition of knowledge is, it is Vastu Tantra. What does Vastu Tantra mean? That the knowledge of that given thing is dependent upon what that is. Your free will, or what you want it to be, has no role to play. What it means is, suppose I ask you, what is this this flower? What will you answer me? Rose, right? Now suppose you'd say, no, but I like lily better, and let me just think it's lily, so what? So what? Everything is mithya, rose is mithya, lily is mithya. What ultimately doesn't matter.
Then there will be bad communication if you tell me it's a lily.
Exactly. So that means the knowledge of this given thing depends upon not what you like, what you don't like, what you wish it to be, what you don't wish it to be. It is depend upon this, what it is. That is what we call Vastu Tantra. So that means the mind has to do what? In order for you to, for what you have understood, for it to be called knowledge, which condition it has to meet? You have to capture it as it is, without your preferences, your will to interfere with it, and vitiate what is out there. You understand? Capturing something exactly as it is, without my own addition, my own subtraction, my own imagination, is called knowledge, the process of knowing.
And how do you know that you're not putting your own...
Yeah.
How
So
can you check
this
it?
is why you channel it, because the minute you put your own thing, right? So this is why this inquiry is extremely intricate. You have put your own thing, like Sudoku, somewhere it will fall apart. Logically, if I engage with you, if you have created a space of knowing which doesn't represent reality, you are, if a person who knows it, suppose engages with you, some point your answers are all muddled up.
The truth has to be logical.
Exactly. So that means the truth can show you something which is not just logically right at it, but the truth cannot be illogical. That is the relationship. We will see that in detail.
So within a teaching tradition, the knowledge will always stay the same. It will always be pure,
Yeah.
but the teaching methodology could still be refined, right, on the way.
Very good. So that means, very good. Matthias, this is a good question. Now, the teaching methodology, that's a very good question. This teaching methodology is something that has come from here, but as Matthias very rightly says, you can refine it further. There is a room for creativity there. What it means is, that I'll just tell you, this is a very good question. What it means is that now I have seen it during my own lifetime. So what Vedas say is, that this Brahman or Atma is Satyam and everything else is Mithya, suppose, right? Now, the Vedic methodology to show that was what you take a pot and you see its relationship with the clay and you say the clay is Satyam and you can have hundreds of different objects made up of clay, but they all are nothing but forms. So the forms are Mithya, clay is the Satyam, right? So this is the methodology that Vedas used. Now what Matthias is saying is, suppose today we have access to quantum physics, suppose. We can use quantum physics to make you see that that clay is also nothing but atoms, atoms are nothing but particles, particles are nothing but quarks, and the physicality of the universe that we are used to seeing as the absolute reality is not true, right? So what means is, over a period of time, what happens is, this methodology, which is an evolved methodology, doesn't always remain constant. And this was the biggest criticism of Swamiji among some scholars. They said, why doesn't he stick to the Shankaracharya had his own method of unfolding how the world is mithya. Why is he using modern science? Why is he using modern psychology? This is all not necessary because this is not there in Shastra. Hey, you can use it. It's not at all a problem. In fact, as the methodology evolves, the knowledge evolves, you can actually make your methodology more and more sophisticated. The only thing that you can't do is change the realities, right? If in your zeal of using modern methodology you change what is the truth, then that is a problem. So this is why Swamiji used to say, use your creativity to communicate, but don't deviate from what the final vision is. That you have to stick to the vision. You can communicate it differently, but at the same time, in your zeal to communicate it differently, you make one logical mistake and you're off. Yeah. Somebody else had, yeah.
Would you say that there is within, maybe I create a logical...
Sure. Go ahead, please,
yeah,
please.
Within Ishvara,
yes,
there is like an inherent drive to gain more consciousness or to pass teaching on or like to increase knowledge. Like, would you say?
Okay. Okay. So now this is a very good question. Now, please don't. That's a very good question. And that means, does Ishvara, I mean, if I have understood, has an agenda for you? In some ways, right? Is that what it is? So it's like, one thing you have to understand, you have to take away the personal intentions on the part of Ishvara, but at the same time, not personal. Yes. So in fact, the world is designed in a way, that is very good question. The world is designed in a way that all of us are looking for fulfillment. Right? So whether you recognize or not, but we are all looking for fulfillment, and the very fact that we are looking for fulfillment means our conclusion about ourselves is that I'm not fulfilled now. That's why you are looking for fulfillment. So you see yourself as small and insignificant, and therefore you want to become fulfilled. You want to remove this smallness. The only thing is that the world, as Ole was talking about, has found its methods of removing this smallness, and the world has, the societies have found their way of removing fulfillment. And what are they? Buying bigger cars, bigger houses, relationships. So everybody actually is searching for fulfillment, and they are searching through these things. Now, the way the world is designed, your search for fulfillment will remain, but these things will never make you fulfilled. And not only they will not, because things don't happen your way, not only you don't feel fulfilled, but you also gain the added baggage. The added baggage of sadness, then meaninglessness, then unfairness, then self-condemnation. So that means now what happens is your search is for fulfillment. Not only you don't get it from the objects that you want, but you keep carrying additional burdens. This at one point becomes unsustainable. When it becomes unsustainable, you begin to, what was this spiritual person asking questions? It impels you to ask questions. Not everybody does, but actually it is moving towards that. So that means your search for fulfillment, when you're looking at this wrong place, it has a cost. And what is that cost?
Suffering.
Yeah, exactly. The cost is suffering. The cost is suffering, and because there is suffering and you don't want the suffering, you are almost driven in the right direction. But it is a very clever arrangement, you need to figure it out. All these clues are given to you and you may never get the clues. So therefore, you're right, the order is such that it is designed in a way that it moves you in this direction of self-inquiry. But whether you actually move or not, it depends upon you, how discerning you are. That's why Andre's point of discerning and discriminating was an important point. Because life is throwing you clues at you all the time, whether you take them or not is entirely up to you.
So, is it so that if there were no ignorance, there would be no world, so no search for fulfillment, right? I mean, that's also somehow embedded in Ishvara, right?
That's very good. See this Ishvara, very good. Ishvara and its relationship with all this, what is Maya, what is Avidya, all this has to be properly understood. Because as Leo says, it's all kind of part of the whole story. And if you can't say that I haven't understood and I understand the vision, it's not possible. Right? So we'll have to understand all these relationships, which I will do that. Yeah, I'll do that. So Swamiji he was a very humorous person. So he said, somebody, he was at Berkeley, and somebody came to him and said, Swamiji, I understand Vedanta very well. Only one thing I don't understand. So what is that? Only two things. One is what is Satya Mithya, I don't understand that. And the other one is what is this Brahman, that also. So that's why you need to understand all of this. So it's a very good point. They will understand all of this. It will come. Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you address the idea of benevolence and of Ishvara being benevolent? Because on the one hand, we're not supposed to give attributes.
Yes.
But then on the other hand, if you talk of clues and some kind of overarching grace also, then it seems like this is a benevolent process.
Okay. Any answers to that? That's a very good question.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with Ishvara. It's based on ignorance. And Maya and ignorance are the cause for evil, let's say. Ishvara itself is not a big thing, like a big person. It's just the whole, the principle, like an intelligence working. And it's and if you think about a certain, like for example, war or stuff like that, so you can't blame Ishvara for the war. The war is totally based on the ignorance of the people involved. So, and on the other hand, you can say that there's meaning, suffering, pain, and evil it's just a question of perspective. Like if you have two parties like fighting against each other, one will say like action A is evil, and the other party will say action A is like it's the opposite, like it's like good or whatever you say. It depends on the perspective. So my answer is it has nothing to do with Ishvara. It's based on ignorance and Maya. So.
Okay.
Yeah, but ignorance is also Ishvara.
Okay, now that requires a very detailed understanding of Ishvara, because we can't just use everything just as Ishvara. We need to understand the relationships well. You have something to say? Yeah, but I mean it's good to think about exactly ignorance is included in Ishvara, but how and all that we need to know. Yeah.
If I would have to answer the question, is Ishvara benevolent? I would say no. And I would say maybe the only thing we might tend to call him benevolent is because there is rules and objectivity, and if we know the rules and how to play the rules, we get the benefit. So in this sense, I would say Ishvara is benevolent, but if we don't know how to play the rules, we don't get the benefit. So as Ishvara is a set of rules, to make it simple, and if action causes reaction, if we know how to play, we get the benefit, and then we might call Ishvara benevolent, but if we don't know how to play the rules, we don't get the benefit.
This is actually a very good answer. Did you understand what she said? Did you, Anya, is it kind of a very good answer? Very good, Gabi. Excellent. What Gabi is saying, I don't want to reiterate what she's saying, but basically that Ishvara, you can't, you can't think of Ishvara as one person who has all the positive attributes. Because the minute you begin to do that, you get into logical problems. What are the logical problems? Because when you look at the world, right, and this is what Tobias was trying to say, and that is, when you look at the world, you only see good things. You see so many wars, and you see all kinds of crimes, and you see violence, and you see all kinds of things. Now you have, suppose, given an attribute of benevolence to Ishvara, and you see all these problems, and then you'll say, hey, what is this benevolent Ishvara who has all knowledge and all power doing about all these problems in the world, and why is he not fixing it, right? And if he has not created these problems, then somebody else has created these problems, and you have to give it another name called devil or evil. And then you have to have what? A fight between this benevolent Ishvara and this evil force which only wants to disturb. And then in these fights, who seems to win?
Devil in the world.
So that means when you take one contention which sounds good, right? This is why I say Vedanta is not just sounding good. When you take one deviation, which yeah, why not make it benevolent? Sounds so much nicer, right? Instead of these laws and right? It sounds dry. Sounding dry and sounding good is not the criteria. What is reality is the criteria. You make one deviation from reality, you will have to create other entities to account for what you see in this world. And because then there is a constant fight between this the benevolent Ishvara and this evil, then the evil seems to have an upper hand. Then you can ask a question, why should I pray to this Ishvara who himself is helpless with reference to that evil? Right? So that means Ishvara becomes weak. You want to praise it by calling it benevolent, but you have deviated from reality, it all becomes illogical. This is why, and at the same time, you can call it benevolent in the way that the world is created not to give you a hard time, but to take you to the reality. And the clues, the world is a stage, and the clues are given to you. and the potential to know the reality is given to you, and you are given the free will to figure it out. And as Gabby said, if you use your free will intelligently, then what? You use all these laws to your advantage, the possibilities of knowing to your advantage, and you come to know the truth. You make the world work for you. Right? And in order to do that, you need that help, because right now, the clarity with which that we operate is so limited, we don't know how to use the world to our advantage. And this is why the prayer is. Do you understand the connections? Before starting on this journey of self-inquiry, you are embarking on this journey, asking for all these forces to help you, so that they become benevolent for you. But for them to become benevolent for you, you have to take the initiative and you have to align to them. Then they do become. Very good answer, Gabby. Yeah? So that means you have to get the world to work for you. And that is only by aligning to dharmas. And this is why you can't lose sight of authenticity. Yeah.
So therefore, is grace simply your ability to align, or
Yes.
is grace something so-called external?
Yes. So the grace is your ability to recognize and align, right? And in that alignment, there is not only dharma, but there is also what we call prayer. What is a prayer? Because the universe is not something which is just mechanical. There is an intelligence. And one of the manifestation of the laws is what? Cause and effect. And by prayer, what are you doing? Tell me. What are you doing by an act of prayer?
You're using words, you're using action.
You understand the law, which is the law, the unfailing, impartial law of cause and effect. This knowledge of cause and effect, what you do is, you also understand that this is not just mechanical cause and effect, there is an intelligence which runs this cause and effect. So by the prayer, what you are doing is what? Drawing from this intelligence and its cause and effect relationship, a prayer is an act of free will. That means you are choosing to pray, it's an act. What are you doing? Adding one more cause called the prayer. And the way the laws of Ishvara are working, about every action which is a cause has to produce an effect. So the result of this prayer, then the name that it is given is grace. So when we talk about grace, it's actually a result of an act of prayer. One thing is very interesting. Any action that you can do, right, it can have positive or negative results depending upon what the nature of that action. Prayer, if it is done with a reasonable understanding, if it doesn't include, kill them because they are all sinners, it's not like that, right? But suppose it does something to help. When you do something to ask for help for something, it cannot produce negative result. This is why it is not given the name. The other actions are given what it is called karma. And the result is called what? Phala. Excellent. Who said? Very good. Karma phala. Right? Here, the prayer is not given the name phalam, because phalam can be positive or negative. Here it is grace. That means you use your knowledge, exactly as Gabby is saying, you use your knowledge of Ishvara, of the laws, and you try to help yourself and increase the chances of your success through alignment of dharma and adding certain other variables called prayer, which increases the chances of success. So when we call Ishvara as benevolent, it means that the minute you align to the laws and the minute you start working, then there is a feedback mechanism. that no effort in this direction will go without result. It's not possible. Yeah? But you can't give an attribute to Ishvara called benevolence, otherwise you will get into big troubles, logical troubles. Did you understand this relationship?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, could I say that suffering is just a way to show me that I'm not aligned then?
Excellent.
It's not evil or...
No, exactly. So that's why any suffering, or it's an indicator. It's an indicator that hey, you are not aligned, which impels you to move towards your fulfillment and figure out what is the right way towards fulfillment. This is why it's not actually bad or somebody is giving you a hard time or anything like that. And this is why we don't use this one thing you please don't do, which I really request you, don't say, oh, it's your karma, therefore you are suffering. This is the worst thing that you can do for somebody, right? Because the life gives you opportunities to evolve. And you don't tell yourself, oh, I've done something really bad in the past and therefore I'm suffering. All you have to do is, there is a suffering and I have been given the capacity to align and to help myself out. Right? So that means, this Vedanta, when you start using it wrongly, it is destructive. It puts you in a passive mode, it puts you in some kind of, oh, I've done something horrible in the past, and it's just like, in this lifetime itself, you could have made poor choices, and that's all. Right? And you're just experiencing the effects of that. Don't make it, oh, I've done something, and you are given the possibility to correct through this wisdom. Maybe they belong to the past, we don't know, but maybe they belong to the present, right? I mean, the point is you need a correction. And when can you do correction? Now. Ask Brahmaji for help. New moments provide new opportunities. Make use of those opportunities. Yeah.
For me, it's not quite clear this prayer, how prayer works. So
Okay.
I'd like to understand it better. What is about prayers that don't seem to produce results?
Okay, great. Now you all want to know everything about everything. So that's not easy for me as a teacher, but I like this. So her question is, now I have to move also, I know that I have to move. What's the time? It's 1. Okay. Now, I'm going to finish the second verse. So, okay. Now, what she's saying is that this cause and effect relationship, the prayer, if I'm adding the cause, it certainly should give me all the results that I want, right? So it doesn't happen. So why is the cause and effect relationship not working? That's your question? Okay. Any answers?
There are many factors involved.
Excellent. So what we say is, so can you demonstrate that through an example?
Well, I can pray for winning Wimbledon one day. But I didn't train.
He's a tennis player.
Okay.
He's already a tennis player, a very accomplished tennis player.
But still, I never will win Wimbledon. Because there are, I think hundreds of factors why I will not succeed.
Excellent. So that means Sanders' ability to play in Wimbledon
Wrong
is
example.
dependent upon not only one variable, which is prayer. His ability to play for Wimbledon depends upon which other factors? Thousands. Which are those thousands? At least name a few.
Training, you have to train enough.
Training, health, training, health.
Other players, better players.
Other players, yes, very good. Other players and their competencies.
Funding,
Financial accessibility to a coach, and everything else. Huh?
The right time and the right place.
So right time and place for what?
To get the goal.
Okay, so now you need to make it like
Maybe now he is not able to, but
okay,
in 10
so
years, if he is really working hard,
how much time he has at his disposal to devote to this tennis because he has his work to do, right? So that means, and then his financial things also kick in because there is a need for him to survive and pay the rent, and also there is Vedanta on the way. So that means, what you need to understand is that the outcome, these are all different causes. It's not just one cause. There are multiple causes and they all interact with each other to produce an effect. It's not an outcome of only one thing. So now, by adding a prayer, what are you actually doing? Tell me.
Adding one factor.
Exactly. All you are doing is adding one more variable in your favor. So that means what you're doing is improving your probabilities. And that's wonderful because you do need, but this is not the only sufficient condition for this to happen. That's why it may seem as though the prayer did not work.
So what happens if the competitor also prays?
Yeah. Wonderful. So that means, absolutely. Now the competitor also prays, he has also added prayer, he is also smart. Now, he also has all these, he also has training which may be equal to him or not, he has help, he has other players, he has financial, he has also the list of issues. So that means, ultimately, who wins is what the maximum factors in your favor, the greater chances of you to win.
And there's also the fact that every effect, the cause has an effect seen and another one which is unseen, and you can never quantify it.
Excellent. So that means the prayer, in addition to this unseen result, where it will interact with all these different factors, right? And it also has a seen result, and the seen result is what? Certain amount of tranquility, certain amount of clarity, which will also help in decision making, right? So that means, this is why we say that when you act intelligently, as Gabi said, the feedback mechanisms are such that they never fail. They never fail, but it doesn't mean that there are so many other factors which are there, you can't just rub them off.
But why pray if you know it's only one little factor in...
One little factor makes all the difference, right? Ask the person who just could not, just 1 mark short of what? Getting into medical school, whole life changes. The small, it's amazing, and this is where what Utah is saying, it's very true. Being there at the right time and the right place. Small things can make a huge difference in your life. It can make quantum shifts. Don't think that they are small. They can be actually deciding factors.
But then
Okay, now I have all these people who are like, okay, now.
But what makes the difference then when I don't see the results of why pray and not like jump around the fire 3 times and
Okay, you can use that same thing. I'm doing so much training, I don't see the results, so why should I train? I mean, that same logic can be applied to anything. Understand that, right? So why should I do this? Anyway, I have help. So why should I? Anyway, this it doesn't happen. No matter every day Sandra says I go to the gym, I still don't get into Wimbledon. So why should I go for? This is a wrong way of thinking. Please understand.
it's doing your best. All you can do is for getting
absolutely.
your goal. Yeah.
You need to know in life what do you want. And for knowing what do you want, you need to figure out what are the different variables that go into it. And you need to be intelligent to identify and work for all those variables, and for the unknown variables where you find helpless, you have one act which is converting that helplessness into something which is power, which is asking for help from Ishvara. This is called intelligent living. Every other way of thinking is a convoluted, self-defeated way of thinking. Because the small things don't matter, then if you don't take care of small things, big things can never happen.
Yeah. This is butterfly effect principle, like kybernetics or whatever. Or when you would like to reach like the Wimbledon tournament, you need to start like with 4 years like training and all the small steps in between. Huh?
We pray for good weather to that you can practice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So does it work exponentially?
So yeah, it does. It does at some point. There is a little bit of a tipping point where all your karmas, all your punyas begin to fructify, and it gives you exponential. How do people become such big stars and stars not in any this way, but people are able to accomplish a lot. Einstein maybe started with simple things. They told me when I came to your place, when I went to somebody's place in Berlin, they told me that he was in the university in Berlin. Who told me? Somebody told me.
Matthias. No?
Somebody else during the lunch at the year retreat. And he was like a simple professor, and from there to where to where. And you just never know. But if you don't do small things, forget it. It's impossible.
I mean, at least with prayers, you're on the safe side. You
Exactly.
can't do anything wrong. It's not detrimental. And even if you don't see the result as you would like to see it, maybe there is an unseen result.
Because see, when you understand that the world has these laws, which are cause and effect, your ability to use these laws to your advantage, that's called smart living. You show me anything in this universe which is not connected to cause and effect relationship. Show me one thing. As Tobias explained, that this the butterfly, about flipping the wing, can create what?
A thunderstorm in
Japan. In Japan.
Good that it's not
Right? So that means, if you see, this is why, be smart. See how the world works and use it to your advantage. Exactly as Gabby is saying. And your life will become lighter. You'll become cheerful. You're not constantly fighting with the world. You're just navigating intelligently to help yourself. And how much can you help yourself? You can come to know your truth. Really. So, time.
Last
Yes.
thing, and you focus with this.
Yes.
Put your mind in a direction what you want.
Yeah,
This
exactly.
This is the main thing for me.
Life is also all about knowing what you want in life. Right? Because you say that Ishvara knows. Hey, Ishvara doesn't know. You are a multifaceted human being. One day you want this, one day you want that. Ishvara doesn't know what your mood is. Right? So therefore, be as clear as possible about what you want in life, and discern the world, and use the world to help you, instead of being dissatisfied with the world, or to think that everything that I do is not going to be sufficient. This particular way of thinking is also something which is problematic, right? So I have people all the time come to me with problems, right? So my job outside the class is, to help them to sort out their problems. So what happens is, suppose they come with one problem, and then they say, oh, so now what should I do? So I don't know about their life, right? So I just try to give some options which are possible. Oh no, but that will not work. So I said, have you tried? No. Right? Exactly. So what happens is, there is a mind which, the hypothetical situation says, it always creates problem, in the sense that it can never be solved.
So this mindset, what it does is, what it keeps oneself out of one's own free will in midst of problems. This is why I'm saying use Vedanta intelligently. You want to use your thinking capacities and all to get yourself out of problems, not to remain in problems. So when people are giving you different options to help yourself out, you can't create a scenario, oh, but that doesn't help, so let me not do it. That doesn't always necessarily help, therefore let me not do it. Hey, at least it will make you better than what it was before. Try it. So that is how what one has to use this whole inquiry to help oneself, to embellish oneself, to understand the world and to begin to navigate intelligently. Yeah? So that means this verse, now, we saw this verse of list of people. Now, before you get your lunch, you have to describe what all it told you. This is why you can't just use Vedanta as, oh yeah, okay, I got it. These are all the people in the lineage, right? And then start talking about the lineage and what a wonderful culture and all. It's wonderful, yes, but it has so many other messages. What are all the different things that we saw? Then,
all knowledge is Ishvara.
Sorry? All knowledge rests on Ishvara. Wonderful. Then?
That nobody else, there can only be a rishi that can discover this knowledge. Not discover, but eliminate ignorance.
Wonderful. So that means gaining of knowledge is actually removing the ignorance. Wonderful. Yeah. Then the third?
Methodology.
Sorry? Yeah. It requires, in order for it to be transferred from one to the other, it requires a methodology. Right. Then?
If you need to understand how it is, not how you want it to be.
Superb. The nature of knowledge is, it is Vastu Tantra. There's a starting point, this has to be clear. Otherwise, you will run your imaginations wild. Right? And that is what you have to stick to, what the realities are. Very good. Excellent. Very good. Anything else?
This is probably what she said. Despite methodology advancing, it doesn't matter as long as the natural order or structure of arriving to the final answer remains completely sequentially logical without deviating off the method as originally employed.
Excellent. So what we saw is, which is very good, what Matthias said is that this methodology which evolved, which the Rishi evolved, it can change over a period of time, right? So as new disciplines of knowledge come, you can refine these methodologies. It's not that they remain exactly the same, but as Andre very rightly said, in developing this, refining those methodologies, we have to have integrity and not twist the knowledge, right? So they have to be used wisely to demonstrate what is going to be said. Otherwise, you deviate and you create your own Vedanta. Very good. So much is seen in this verse, which is just giving some 5 names, which are unknown names.
Could it be also that the knowledge comes from a teacher?
Yes.
It's not from, you cannot come to your own by yourself.
Superb. Superb. Last. Very good. Excellent. Last but not the least. And that is that for you to gain this knowledge, you can't say, oh yeah, Atharva got it, right? Let me also get it directly from Ishvara. It is like saying, Einstein got E is equal to mc square. Why should I go to college and learn all of this? Let me try to find out on my own. Is it a wise way to live life?
It's not so wise, no.
So that means you have these rishis who have discovered it and they have evolved methodology. methodology, the smartest thing is to do is to go to college and learn from a professor, right? Because he will show you exactly. And maybe if you learn that, you can discover something even more. Who knows? Instead of wasting your time in reinventing the wheel. Yeah. Okay. So the necessity of a teacher, a life teacher and life teaching for you to get there. So these verses which are just giving some names show so much. So this is my job now that you have listened to Vedanta so often to bring out all these intricacies. Yeah. Okay.